A hearty welcome to all of you to our YouTube channel CSNSR. I'm speaking Stella from the CSNSR. Today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic which is a GST refunds. And also it's our pleasure to welcome our CA Leena ma'am. Thank you so much ma'am to joining us and also giving your valuable time. Before beginning, I request to all of you those who are watching us to subscribe our YouTube channel and do not forget to like, share and comment. Now ma'am, I would like to invite you to share the thoughts of the today topic.
Thank you, Stella, for this warm, hearty welcome. And thank you, CA Sansar, for giving me yet one more opportunity to be present on your esteemed portal. Now, as Stella said, today we'll be discussing a very interesting topic of GST, that is GST refunds. GST refund is today one of the most complex, misunderstood uh, part of the GST Act. This is Though the GST Act was initiated with the view to make it a seamless tax, yet GST refunds till today continue to clog the department and the appellate forums with multifarious issues arising because of a misinterpretation of the Act, procedural failures, system driven failures, leading to rejection of refund, litigations, and subsequent problem for the taxpayers. So, our discussion today is in regards to the GST refund law, procedural aspects, the amendment, especially the amendment in the 56 GST Council meeting, and some practical aspects and litigation surrounding GST refund areas. We will also be discussing the compliant factors and the refund categories under which refunds can be claimed. First things first, let us understand the statutory framework of claiming GST refund. How and under what sections are we entitled to claim refund under GST? The refund governing sections are enshrined in sections 54 to 58 of the CGST Act, with 54 being the primary section which entitles or enables the taxpayer to claim refund of tax, duty, interest, fees, or any other payment made under the GST Act. But as we all know, that procedures play a very important role in GST refund. So Act in itself is not the complete guide. We have to follow the rules. These are rules 89 to 97A, again contained in the CGST rules. And for all of us who have been practicing GST, following GST, we all know that in case of GST, it's not only the act and rule which we need to study to understand the entire framework. Time and again, several notifications are issued, mainly because of problems faced by field formations or taxpayer. The act, the rules, along with these notifications, are important to be studied to understand the complete framework of the GST laws. The primary notifications are notification number 125 issued in November 2019, which forms one of the most important backbones in helping us understand and claim refunds correctly. So, what are the categories under which refunds can be claimed? Most common category that all of us know is zero rated supplies or exports. Now, what happens? When a person exports goods, they have two options. Either they can make the exports without payment of tax or with payment of tax. What are the differences? In case you want to export goods without payment of IGST, you have to obtain a letter of undertaking or an LUT online. Once an LUT is obtained, exports can be made without payment of any IGST. This applies both in case of goods as well as services. Now, since exports are made without payment of any tax, there is an accumulation of eligible ITC, which obviously cannot be offset because you're not paying any taxes. This accumulated eligible ITC is eligible for refund under the refund provisions. And when exports are not made without payment of tax, it is made with payment of IGST. What happens in that situation? In that case, the IGST that has been paid, one obviously sets off the ITC and the balance is paid in cash. Now, this entire IGST that has been paid for making the export is again eligible for refund. Over here, I would like to bring to your notice an important aspect. In case of export without payment of tax, whether it is goods or service, the refund issuing authority is a GST department and the refund applications are filed before them. Interestingly, in case of export with payment of IGST, it is only in case of services that the refund application falls before the GST department. Export of goods with payment of GST is the only category of refund which is handled by the customs department. In that case, the shipping bill forms a part of your refund application, and the procedure contained in GST Act does not apply. But that is only for one particular case: export of goods with GST. Similarly, we also supply goods to SEZ, which also zero rated, and services to SEC. In that case, also, if you've made supplies without payment of tax under LUT, you can claim unutilized ITC, and if you've made payment of IGST, you're eligible to claim IGST on such exports. That was exports. There are certain domestic categories also which are eligible for refund. The primary is inverted duty structure. Inverted duty structure refund has continued to remain one of the most litigated areas of GST because of several misinterpretation of law by taxpayers, sometimes by the department. Uh, Let us understand what is inverted duty structure refund. Now, according to the Act, when there is an accumulation of ITC, because the rate of supplies in the domestic market is lower than the inputs used. Obviously, your ITC will accumulate. You will never be able to utilize complete ITC because the rate of output is higher. That is eligible for refund. Now, why has this continued to remain a litigated area? Because there are a lot of misunderstanding, misinterpretation, I would say, not misunderstanding of law. Field formations would require a one-to-one correlation between input and output. Sometimes they would also say no for those inputs which are rated at the same rate or lower, GST refund cannot be claimed. These issues now have been laid to rest after issuance of Circular 125 in November 2019, which clarified that, see, output can have multiple inputs, and some inputs might have a rate of GST at the same or lower than the output. That does not mean inverted duty structure refund cannot be claimed. As long as there's an accumulation of ITC, output is at a lower rate, you can claim inverted duty structure refund as well. That apart, we can claim refund on deemed exports. What are deemed exports? Deemed exports, exports which are not per se exports technically, however, they've been notified to be exports by issuance of government circulars and notifications. These are also eligible for refunds. The balance lying in your cash ledger, this is eligible. You can claim a refund of it at any point of time that you want to, because that is cash ledger balance is nothing but what you have deposited with the government. It's your money, so you can claim refund of it. Thereupon, you may become eligible for a refund of tax because of an order of a tribunal or a high court or Supreme Court. You can claim refunds. Then there are cases where a supplier might uh, assume a transaction to be intrastate and pay CGST, SGST. Subsequently, it is held to be an IGST supply interstate. You can pay the IGST and claim a refund of the wrongly paid tax, and vice versa also might happen. You've paid IGST, subsequently CGST, SGST. You pay the correct tax and claim the refund of the wrong tax. And also excess payment of tax if you've made, you are eligible for refund. However, these refunds are subject to a lot of limitations and procedural requirements. Before we discuss the procedural requirement, I would like to discuss the limitation period, which is an important aspect of the GST refund. Now, GST Act states that you can claim refund under all these categories fine, except cash ledger. Cash ledger is not subject to any kind of time limit. Why? I'll tell you a little later. But first, let us just understand the time limit. Time limit is 2 years from the relevant date. The word used in the act is relevant date. What is relevant date? Relevant date is situation specific. As we've seen that there's so many categories under which you can claim refund. So for each situation, your limitation period will commence from the date as would apply to that situation, which has also been detailed in the act itself. Like in case of export of goods, your eligibility, your commencement of 2 years starts from the date of export. In case of a high court or court order pursuant to which you're eligible to get a refund, it will commence from the date of the order. In case of wrong payment of tax, if your eligibility will start from the date you've made the correct payment of tax, so on and so forth. The situations are specified in the explanation to section 54 in the CGST Act itself. Interestingly, this time frame limitation period will not apply to cash ledger. That means if you have a balance in your cash ledger account, you can claim refund of the same at any point of time without the fetters of limitation period, simply because What is deposited in your cash ledger is what you've deposited with the government to be subsequently used towards GST. There is no liability per se. You've still paid it. So you can claim it back at any point of time. That is as far as cash ledger is concerned. Now, relevant date has been subject to a couple of controversies, which is very important for us to know. There has been a very ongoing litigation. Different high courts have held different views in regards to application of relevant date in case tax has been paid without the authority of law. This issue derives its strength from Article 265 of the Constitution of India. Article 265 of the Constitution of India states that no tax can be collected without the authority of law. For example, if I'll say, suppose you were exigible to GST for any supplied, say 5% or 12%. Under a mistaken belief of law, you've paid 18%. Subsequently, you realize maybe 3 years or 4 years down the line that the tax I paid was extra. In that case, will the period of limitation apply? Because you might have crossed the statutory 2-year defined period. Some courts have held that this excess payment that you've made is actually unauthorized payment. You were exigible only to 12%. So what you've paid is not tax. It's just a security deposit. It is unauthorized collection. Revenue cannot retain it. It has to be returned without any reference or lapses or procedural lapses as such. However, there are courts which have held it differently also. So this is a very litigated area that in this case should a fetter of time limit apply because it was never a tax per se to begin with. So that is one very important area of litigation which has still not found finality. Another area of litigation is an interesting area is arises from a decision of a Madras High Court in the case of Lenovo India Private Limited. The substance of the judgment is that this time limit is directory, it's not mandatory, and they derive the strength from the language of the act. For your benefit, I'll just read out the relevant part and why Madras High Court drew strength from the act. Now, Section 54, subsection 1 states that any person claiming refund of any tax and interest may make an application before the expiry of 2 years from the relevant date. Over here, the important word is may. The court emphasized upon this and stated that the very use of the word may and not shall means this provision is directory, it is not mandatory. Having said that, other courts have held a different view also. So this is also a very litigated area. These two often form a part of the major litigation in the statutory framework of GST refund. And now we move on to the procedural format. This was statutory, what was mandated by that. Now, what is the procedure for claiming refund? And what are the problems in this procedural aspect which leads to rejection of refunds? Okay, the procedure is application has to be filed in RFD 01 form online along with all the prescribed documents, and the documents are prescribed in Rule 89 and Circular 125, which definitely is one of the most important circulars in the realm of refund, which lays down all the conditions for online filing of refund. Also gives in its annexure regarding the documents to be supplied in or furnished in each case of refund that you're claiming. So this needs to be studied properly, and these documents are mainly in the nature of evidences supporting your refund claim, like statement of invoices, computation of refund as per the formula laid down. That reminds me that there's also the refund has to be computed as per the formula laid down in Rule 89. So this gives the formula and eligibility of refund claim documentation needs to be filed. So along with the RFD 01, these documents need to be uploaded. This is where most of procedural problems arise, sometimes arising from the fact that the supply shown in your GST advan do not match with 3B, or the refund that you've computed is not correctly computed as per the formula, or the documents are not as per what is prescribed in the rules as well as the notification. If careful attention is paid to these, litigation can be minimized on account of procedural irregularities. Apart from these supporting documents and formula, one another aspect of procedural requirements is that one has to provide evidence that there is no unjust enrichment in this case. Principle of unjust enrichment is that the person claiming the refund is the one who has borne the burden of taxation, and that the incidence of this tax has not been passed on to any other person. This is definitely an important requirement. How to fulfill it? If the refund is less than 2 lakhs, a self declaration has to be filed, and if it exceeds 2 lakh, a CA or a CMA certificate is required. Procedural aspects also does cover the timeline. I will cover one first, and that is that once you file the refund application, the department within 15 days has to intimate or find a deficiency if they notice. If such deficiency memo is received, you have to file refund application once again correcting that defect. And once the second application is filed, no defect memo can be issued until unless the first defect remains unrectified. There is another important timeline that we need to discuss, but before that discussion, I would like to discuss the amendments of 56 GST Council meeting, because that will have a bearing to that earlier discussion. So let us first discuss this part. Now, once the application is filed, defect memo has been received, not received, correct, everything that. Then what happens? With effect from 1st November 25, in pursuance to the 56 GST Council meeting, wherein an amendment to Rule 91(2) has been recommended, it has it has become effective from 1st November 25. Is that once a refund application is filed, the system will analyze the risk, and in all cases of low risk matters, 90% of the refund has to be provisionally issued up front. So this risk parameter is system driven. Nobody else can decide whether it's a high risk case or a low risk case. And in all those cases, 90% refund has to be issued. In high risk cases, of course, the department reserves the right to conduct a detailed scrutiny. The advantage of this is that there is no clogging of working capital, which is earlier the issue. That is where I would like again go back to the earlier timeline. Earlier, what used to happen once the defect memo was clarified, department had 60 days to issue your an order on refund. If they're satisfied, they would issue an order accepting your refund. Otherwise, they might issue an SCN requiring you to explain the case. After the explanation, they might be satisfied, might not be satisfied, issue complete refund, reject complete refund, or issue it in parts. Of course, one had the liberty to approach the appellate forums, but the problem was working capital used to get blocked. This is where this amendment of the 56 GST Council meeting really comes to the rescue of exporters. That if it is a clear case, there is no risk associated, at least they do not face these financial risks of money getting clocked till the time an appellate forum decides in its favor. Okay. Now, these were most of the procedural issues. And one more thing is that if refund is not sanctioned within 60 days, uh, the taxpayer is entitled to an interest at the rate of 6% per annum, starting from the day immediately following the expiry of 60 days to the date of receipt of your refund. So these cover the procedural aspect. As I already said, the procedural aspects, if careful attention is paid while filing the application, and as much as ensuring that your 1, 3B figures match, you are filing a proper certification regarding no tax incidents not having been passed, you've computed the refund properly as per the formula in the Act, procedural aspects generally can be minimized. Before I close this discussion on procedural aspects, just two small things that I would also like to bring to your notice. That what is the period for which you can claim the refund? 1 month, 1 quarter, 1 year. There is no limitation for the periodicity as long as it is within the statutorily prescribed period. And earlier, it was one of the notifications stated that it at 2 financial years could not be clubbed together. However, subsequently in 2021, it was clarified that even that is allowed. So if your refund application comprises of two different financial years, even that is allowed. Another important question that arises, can an unregistered person claim refund? Yes, in situations where an unregistered person does become eligible for refund, they can claim a refund application by obtaining a temporary registration number. So this is in gist the statutory framework, the procedural requirement, and the practical issues while filing the GST refund applications. And if these are kept in mind, and thankfully with the amendment with the 56 GST Council, which applies both to export refunds as well as IDS, the problems being faced by tax applicants claiming refund would definitely be minimized. So, but this is just a gist. If any further clarification is required, please feel free to reach out to me. So, Stella, that is all from my side. Over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Like it will be definitely helpful for the people those who are watching us. And if you guys having the problem, like any question, doubt, so you guys can comment on our comment section. Definitely we will reply you. So from the heart, ma'am, thank you so much. I want to say you like wonderfully you explain the GST refunds the topic, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Stella. Thank you, CA Portal. Thank you so much.